Welcome in to the Boston Sports Summit Championship Edition, baby. That is right. I am your host, Tim Barnard. The Boston Celtics have just won their 18th banner on Monday night. What a game. What a time. It has just been absolutely unbelievable. I pretty much since Monday, or maybe Sunday, but definitely Monday night. I mean, if you look, like, obviously, what did I do? I went out, I bought the merch, I got my official on-court t-shirt right here. I have the official towel as well as the banner right above me. And oh boy, I am so excited. It's been just a whirlwind over the last couple of days to sit here and just know that the Celtics have done it. They have officially completed the season right where I expected them to be. I think a lot of Celtics fans expected them to be here, to be in this situation. Now, I don't think we had any idea Dallas was going to even be a contender in this series, and they weren't. But that's just the fact that the Celtics faced, did I say Denver? I meant Dallas. The fact that Dallas was even in the series, I think, was surprising, because if it wasn't Denver, it was definitely going to be Minnesota. So, I mean, listen, it's been a heck of a time to be alive. The only thing that I do want to say is, to all the mainstream media guys, to all the ESPN guys, Fox Sports guys who thought that Dallas was better, thought that Dallas was deeper, thought that Kyrie and Luka were the best duo, not only in today's NBA, but in NBA history. I got a little clip for you guys.
Well, the Celtics do not have 3 or 4 guys that can guard Luka. I like Dallas in this series. I like the way they're playing. I think this is a little special for Kyrie, maybe a little special for Porzingis as he plays, because I know he played in Dallas, but I think I like Dallas in this series.
So, I figure out how to take it. Who do you like to win the series?
I like Dallas. I'm riding right now the way Luka and Kyrie are playing together, and the talent level there. It's on display in the way they can control the game.
Finals.
Well, I like the Mavs. I said after, I think, Game 3 that I like the Mavs in 5, and I still like the Mavs in 5.
Okay.
UD, you're up first. Who do you have winning the whole darn thing?
Dallas. I got Dallas winning. I think Dallas is deeper. You talk about, they got Exum on the bench. They got Green coming off the bench. They got Lively coming off the bench. Tim Hardaway Jr., who doesn't get much playing time, is also coming off the bench. I think they can guard these guys better. Oftentimes, NBA play-up games are about matchups. I just think they match up better. They can switch pick and rolls and take them out of all the triggers. And on the other end, I think Dallas is going to attack Porzingis.
All right, real quick. And how many games, and who's the finals MVP? Quickly.
7 games, and I got Luka being the MVP.
I got the Mavs in 6 in Dallas.
Okay.
Can't see anybody going to Game 7 in Boston in that environment and winning for an NBA championship on the line. And I'm going to have to go with Luka. I think Kyrie will warrant consideration, but Luka is obviously a globe.
And all I can say to that is, bam! How do you like them apples, baby? That is right. Jason Tatum is the NBA champion. Jaylen Brown sweeping both the conference finals and NBA finals MVPs. Oh, it's so good. And in case you didn't notice, we have the same shirts on. So right now, I want to welcome in a grid contributor to the show, Dylan Lima, a fellow Celtic fan. Dylan, how are you feeling after Monday?
I feel ecstatic. No other way to put it. Especially, I love the little media mashup that you put. It's crazy how slept on the Celtics were, especially considering how dominant they were all year. So the fact that they were able to shut up every single doubter that they had, and not only do that, but did it in 5 games. I mean, there's no other way to put it besides just being very happy. I got this stuff at Game 2 of the NBA Finals. Got my little finals patch right here, so I'm ready to go.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. I mean, look at this. Boston Celtics 2024 world champs. Even got the floor covered in confetti. We have just the city of champions. It's just been stupid at how many championships we won in the 21st century, let alone this. And then, of course, the champs all sitting in cheers because everybody knows their name. That's everybody on here knows their name. So it's just been it's been a whirlwind. So Dylan, I predicted the Celtics would win in 5. I thought that game 2 would have been the blunder, but it turned out that game 4 was the blunder. It felt like the stars aligned. The Celtics were just, here we go. We're coming in and we're going to win 1 on the road, because at least with winning 1, they knew that Monday was going to be, not only in Boston, but it was also, it's 617 day. You have 617, the Boston area code. You have Bill Russell wearing number 6. You have, I can't even remember, but
the reunion of the anniversary of the last championship.
Yeah,
that was also the same day.
17 is John Havlicek. 24 is Sam Jones. And then it was something about a game 5. Bill Walton just passed. He wore number 5 in Celtic green. So, Dylan, what was your prediction to start the series? And then what was your take on the series?
I mean, I think 5 sounds about adequate, maybe 6 at the very most. I can't say I'm surprised that the Celtics dominated the Mavericks. I have no idea where all these people came from saying that the Mavericks matched up better than the Celtics. We saw all season long that, especially the Celtics starting 5, they just locked down every single person they went up against. And I mean, my biggest reaction is just really like Luka was the only one that really showed up. Kyrie only showed up for game 4. Especially in Boston, he did not show up at all. He was terrified. It looked like he was peeing down his leg every single time he touched the ball in Boston. Especially at game 2, considering how terrible the Celtics shot, and somehow Kyrie still managed to shoot worse. It was very evident that they needed Luka and Kyrie to be on pulling out all the stops for them to even have a chance. And when either one of them slacked or when Luka fouled out, whatever, they just had nothing. It was just, they seemed to only like to pass to each other. And God forbid anyone else got open, they would be lucky to even get a shot. It seemed the Celtics didn't even seem to care to defend anyone else but Luka and Kyrie. So, I'm just happy that the Celtics took care of business, did what was expected, and they're quite frankly head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah, and that was the thing too. It was so funny because everybody on the grid too, and I'm not even talking about them picking Dallas, but I'm talking about them all buying into this. Oh, Kyrie's a changed man. He's got his head on straight for once in his life. What are you talking about? He's gonna be fine. He's gonna be good to go. And I kept saying time and time and time again that Kyrie is a psychopath. He is a crazy person. And don't buy into this BS that he's a changed man. No, because look at it this way. Not only did he suck in Boston, I think he averaged 15 points in 3 games in Boston. He couldn't do crap in Boston at any point. He finally made a 3-pointer in Boston in game 5, and he made 3 of them. And so Luka had to carry the team in games 1 and 2, which he did. But as I said, I will give Luka all the points in the world because his first 2 games, game 1 and game 2, he had over 30 plus points on over 26 plus shot attempts. Give me that all day long and twice on Sunday. Plus, getting back to Kyrie was, obviously on the floor couldn't play. But then when everybody was asking him questions off the court, what about Boston? What about Boston? What about Boston? He went on this soliloquy, 10-minute soliloquy every single time about his time in Boston, to the point where he called Boston a cult. Why? Because he didn't fit in? Dude, we won 17 championships when you came in here. We have a deep, deep history. And that's the beauty about Celtics fans. And that's kind of what made me, not made me a Celtic fan, but it being a Celtic fan broadened my horizon to the history of sports. Because, again, I was born in the early 90s. I never saw Larry play. I never saw Russell play, live. But being a Celtic fan, I could sit back and watch and just be like, wow, like look at this history that we have. Really, we won 16 banners. Well, let me go in. Let me look at it. You call that a cult? Fine. I will take it as a cult. But you know what? He was the crazy one. Don't in the fact that people or Kyrie wants to put it on us, the fact that the whole mainstream media, ESPN, Fox Sports wants to buy into this Kyrie nonsense, fine, let him. But you know what? That just makes it even more sweeter to beat his ass and to not only win, but to dominate the Mavs the way we did. It's just crazy to me that, all these guys, picked Dallas, thought Kyrie and Luka were the greatest duo ever in history. I mean, give me Larry Bird and Kevin McHale before Kyrie and Luka. At least they were, technically out of shape, but could last a full 48 minutes and a full 82 plus game season. Like,
Yeah.
it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, Kyrie at the end of the day, he this was an issue that he put upon himself because, I mean, going throughout his career, especially in Cleveland, he had LeBron come in, they won a championship, and Kyrie made it evident that he wanted his own team. He came to Boston, he was the vet on the team with Tatum and Brown. He got hurt the first year, and then coming into the second year, he was making all these promises. He had the commercial with his dad saying that he wants to get his number retired. He was talking to the fans saying that, hey, if you guys are willing to have me, I would love to be here for the rest of my life. Here comes the All-Star break. All of a sudden, you see him and Kevin Durant, James Harden in the corner, gossiping like little high school girls or whatever, just like, oh, maybe we should team up or
Well, that's
whatever.
the
And then
NBA.
from the, I know, but like that was, I mean, especially with the whole Kevin Durant situation, that's where
Yeah.
it all kind of started. Like
Yep.
the whole clicking up and making super teams. Like, yeah, we had the Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, but that wasn't that they didn't click up until after the season. This was in the middle of the season. Celtics were contenders, and Kyrie was already looking for his way out. And then he
Yep.
forced his way out, and then all of a sudden now he's mad that the Celtics fans that he made all these promises to are now mad at him. I mean, now hopefully this is finally like the end of this, where it's like, all right, we finally beat you in the finals. We got a ring. We can finally get over you. Because it is kind of exhausting the way how Kyrie's hated. Because I mean, like at the end of the day, it's like, he's a human. Everybody has their own faults. And I mean, Kyrie seems to find his home in Dallas. He seems to have his head. I mean, I definitely agree to an extent where he seems to be a lot more at ease in Dallas. He seems to be happy to be along with Luka. It seems like a place that he's willing to play at least the next couple years or so. So who's to say that maybe he finally found his home after all this time? But just like the way that his arc went, the way that he made all these empty promises and then broke them all before the season even ended is just really, I mean, like I don't know what else he was supposed to expect.
Well, and you bring up a good point because and I've been saying this forever now. Like, yes, he made all these empty promises. He was sitting there trying to talk about how I'm going to bring a ring to Boston. I want my number retired in Boston, this, that, and the other. He was going to be the guy to help Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum raise their games. And I mean, not for nothing, he could have, but it wasn't wearing Celtic green, which was, I think, what we all wanted at the time. And I'll admit, I was a big Kyrie fan. I was stoked about getting him. I couldn't believe it because, the funny thing is about Kyrie is what is he outside of this series? What was Kyrie known for?
Game-winning shot in Cleveland for the finals. That was it. I think that was his biggest moment.
Exactly. That's what he was known for. And so to play him, for everything to go down the way it did in Boston, for him to, again, talk about how if you want me back, I'll re-sign here. Whole crowd went nuts. I played it a couple weeks ago on my show. And when I was sitting down, with my friend and local media personality, Aaron Parsesian, I asked him the question because I believe that the Celtics won. Don't get me wrong. When I'm about to ask this question, I still hate Kyrie with a burning passion. I always will. I hate when you spurn me, I will never, forget about it. I'll forgive you. I don't, I think I've forgiven Kyrie, but I'll never forget about it. So what I asked him was, do you think that Celtics fans should now stop booing Kyrie? Because at the end of the day, what more do you want?
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it's just like I think that was the biggest thing was that winning this championship, especially against Kyrie, I think the hatchet can now finally be buried because you can't reverse time. Kyrie's never coming back to Boston, nor not like anyone wants him back in Boston, anyways. But like, I mean, there's always going to be some kind of jokes or people saying some stuff to Kyrie. That's going to be inevitable. But like the total incessant booing, while funny, does get tiring. I mean, being there in the finals, I watched him get booed from the first moment he touched the ball to the very last moment he touched the ball. And I think it definitely did help the Celtics stay in that game because, especially with how bad they were shooting, just the mere fact that it seemed like throughout the game, as Kyrie kept on missing more and more shots, he was getting more and more frustrated. He felt like he had to do more and more. And instead of facilitating the ball and passing around, trying to find the open man, he felt like he needed to win that game just to shut everybody else up. And he couldn't. He tried. I remember him like pointing at the crowd after knocking down a shot early in the game, and then he missed like eight shots in a row. It felt like it was just like it was very evident that the Celtics fans live rent free in Kyrie's head. He only has won one game since he stepped on lucky, which I think that was also another big thing too. After the Nets won that series against Boston, Kyrie stepped on lucky. Like it was almost kind of like an omen where it was like also like the burning of the incense. Like he has so many like weird little things that he did. Like he can makes you scratch your head. Where it's like the ownership didn't do anything to you, the teammates didn't do anything to you. If anything, your vendettas against the fans. Which I mean, that's
Which
again, that's no
he
different than anywhere
started
else.
it. Which he started it. And the funny part is too, even when Kyrie played in Dallas in games 3 and 4, Kyrie had 35 in game 3 and then 21 in game 4, and they destroyed us. Granted, he probably sat for most of the fourth quarter, if not the whole fourth quarter, but even still, like 21 points. And I remember looking at that going, I'm not impressed. There's something about Boston, Celtic Green, and Kyrie that obviously just doesn't mix. But it's my take was back when I asked about the booing question. I go, listen, I will never forget what Kyrie did. I forgive him for it because it's done over. I don't really need to I don't need to hold on to it because why would I? But at the same time, like I'm done. I'm done booing Kyrie every time he steps foot into Boston because just for the sheer fact of we beat him for a title. We beat him for the championship. Again, as a sports fan, what more do I want? Like I was nervous playing Dallas because the last thing I wanted to see was Kyrie raising a trophy over, the Celtics. Like that would have just eaten me alive after everything that he did to us. Poetic justice would not have been there. Now, poetic justice is there. It's done. Kyrie, I'm burying the hatch because I don't care about you anymore. It's done. You're a bum. Kyrie, while extremely talented, is a bum. Like it's just plain and simple. I want to move on now. Talking about again, we're champions. Let's talk about the champions, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. My thing was, and I'll admit this. Last summer, Jaylen Brown getting $288 million over 5 years, making him the highest paid annual annual NBA player in the NBA. And I'm like, Jaylen Brown does not deserve to be the highest paid NBA player. Like that is just ridiculous. I didn't even think he deserved to be top 10, but because of the way the Supermax all works out and everything, that's how it happened. So I was super skeptical of that deal. I was one of the guys where I'm like, you know what? This is Tatum's team. If I get a good deal for Brown, he's out of here. Like I'm good with that. Because I was looking at this Celtics roster, especially after 22 in the finals, as if they were the next Oklahoma City with Durant, Harden, Westbrook, where you can't imagine the Oklahoma City Thunder of all teams having those three guys under one roof and them not showing up in the finals the way they did, or even winning a finals, because they're all so incredibly talented. So seeing them win, seeing Brown perform the way he performed, not just in the playoffs, but all season long, being able to dribble with his left hand. I know he likes to, wave the left hand like, hey, yep, see, I got it. He did that dunk at the NBA All-Star weekend with the left hand. Like, I get it, right? But it was rightfully earned because he couldn't dribble with his left hand to save his life. But now I'm looking at this team in a totally different way. I'll admit I was wrong that this is not the Oklahoma City Thunder of 2012. This is the 2024 Celtics. And I think that this team can go on and make something of themselves. Dylan, tell me, what were your thoughts about Brown getting that contract and then watching him play not only this season, but in the playoff, not only in the playoffs, but this season? Are you sold on Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum coexisting now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when I saw the contract, I didn't even raise an eyebrow because it was one of those things where it's like watching the Celtics for as long as I have, they've never been able to sign stars. I think the only time we've ever really signed a star was Al Horford his first time around. I remember that was a big deal. Ever since then, we tried to coax friggin' Kevin Durant with Kelly Olynyk. Like, I think we just caught lightning in a bottle with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And I was one of those people that I'm like, I don't care if Jason Tatum and Brown play until they're 36 years old together. They're going to win a ring one way or another. And of course, it was concerning when they were both turning over the ball so much. They were both feeling like they had to play hero ball, especially when the pieces around them weren't working. But I think Brad Stevens, Wick Grausback notoriously ran to Brad Stevens' office saying, we need to make changes. We got to make something happen. And Brad Stevens stepped up. He got Kristaps. I remember almost falling to my knees when I saw Marcus Smart got traded. So I think because he was really the heart and soul.
I was going to get to Marcus Smart in a minute, but I got to know. You fall on your knees in a good way or a bad way? Were you devastated?
Bro, I was at Topgolf with my friends when my friend told me about that. And I remember I was like literally like just like down bad, just like trying to hold myself up because
okay, right. So we'll get to Marcus Smart in just a minute, but I continue your story. We traded for Porzingis, got rid of Smart.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then I was concerned there because I was always like, even though Smart wasn't the best shooter, he wasn't the best decision maker. His defense is undeniable. And how are you going to replace that defense? Jrue Holiday. So once Jrue Holiday came, in my mind, I'm like, oh, there's not a doubt. We're owning the Eastern Conference at least. Like I was already looking towards the Western Conference when Jrue Holiday got traded here. Because we saw what he did with Milwaukee. He was easily a second option, especially when Chris Middleton was out. And he's like a more mature Marcus Smart is the best way I could put it. He knows when to step away. He knows when to step up. He always makes amazing impact on defense one way or another. And he's just a quiet, solid-minded veteran. And then just watching the Celtics steamroll everyone and it wasn't like it really. I don't think people realize how special the Celtics team is until the Celtics are back in the situation next season. Because I firmly could, especially when all starting five are under contract next year. Granted, a lot of their bench players are free agents, but almost all of them can be replaceable. I think Hauser was the only guy that was like, even then Hauser didn't even perform that great in the playoffs anyways. Like he could be replaced with another dude that could shoot threes. Oh, so, Tim?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, yeah, okay. So, at the end of the day, it's like as long as the starting five stays together, they have a great chance to run a dynasty if they really, if they stay together, injuries don't become too much of a problem. I just think the big issue is going to be who's going to be the big that eats minutes when Kristaps is down and Al Horford can't play. I think that's the only issue the Celtics really have to face this upcoming offseason.
Yeah, and listen, I agree, and that's something where I am glad that Jaylen and Jason are two guys that understand. They've heard all the talk. They've heard this, that, and the other. The only thing I really feel that can affect these two in the long run, because listen, you had Tatum and his agent going to Wick or going to Brad during the celebration on the court, joking around, being like, so, yeah, you want to get that contract? If you give us the contract for the 5-year, 315 Supermax that Tatum is going to be asking for, we'll sign it right now. And they obviously were like, oh, well, in a couple of days. Don't worry. We're getting that to you, but in a couple of days. So I think Jalen and Jason are definitely going to be sticking around for quite some time, which I'm very excited about. I am nervous. I still have to study up on the new CBA because the way they are framing the language about trading guys and signing and, the luxury tax, this, that, and the other, it's still kind of like up in the air to me. It's all lawyer speak, which again, I think the world would be a better place with less lawyer speak instead of, like
For
I'm
sure,
not
for
gonna
sure.
the whole world, the whole lawyer thing. But I will say, it's just you're sitting there like trying to read these contracts and going like, what? Didn't you just say that like 3 seconds ago? Like, what are we doing here? But no, in all honesty, though, I'm glad they got this title out of the way. I'm hoping that this is going to be the opening to a floodgate because with these two, I think no doubt in my mind is Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown top 10 players in the NBA. I think Tatum is a top 3 player in the NBA, and I think Jaylen Brown is now officially a top 10 player in the NBA. And I'm not even talking about the reason being that Jaylen Brown won both MVPs. I don't care because one of the things that you mentioned with Smart is his defense and his tenacity. Jaylen Brown picked that up tenfold. The way because I know you've heard this, I've heard it, but defense is 20% skill, 80% ego, tenacity. What are you going like? It's all about what you want to do, and that's why I was excited to see Jalen play the way he did, and I thought he earned Finals MVP. Now with Jason's Game 5 performance, I think there was definitely an argument to be had because Brown sucked in game 4. And so did Tatum. Actually, Tatum was better, but not by much. So it was definitely one of those situations. But short term, I'm hoping that this is like opening of a floodgate. I think that if we could get a solid big who is just young enough where he definitely has experience, but he's also like a true big. And like I've always been a fan of oh damn, what the hell is his name? The kid in Miami.
Bam.
Adebayo. Thank you. I've always been a big Adebayo fan, just because I feel like he plays bigger than he is, and he's definitely a good, solid lockdown center. I know Lively. A quick thing about Lively, like he was all over the board, and I'll be honest, I was making fun of him for his hair during my Game 2 live stream. And then, of course, like they go to commercial and they come back out of commercial with him, like talking about his tattoo with his mother and this, that, and the other. And of course, I'm sitting there going, boy, don't I feel like a friggin' ass. But then, of course, he goes out and then he plays games 3, 4, and 5, elbowing Derek White into the floor like that. I'm sorry. I take everything good I said back about Derek Lively. I hate that scumbag. What a friggin' loser. And yes, I will be making fun of the fact that his hairline starts like right here. Like, it's so dumb. But I had to get that out of the way because it was driving me nuts after watching Game 5. But no, I'm not trying to include injuries here. I think that these two can coexist for the short and long term. I think if we do win a few more titles, my only fear is what's the ego going to be like? Because as you've seen, as I've seen, Tatum is the media darling. He is on all the ads. He does all the different types of commercials. He was the first one interviewed by was it Lisa Saunders? Right after the championship trophy, and it wasn't Brown. And people are saying that Brown's too polarizing. And again, I'm putting words into their mouths, but I think that ego could play a factor. And I hope it doesn't. I hope these two can play their entire careers in Boston. And if they don't play their entire careers in Boston, I hope it's like a Paul Pierce, Garnett, trade situation. It's, hey, under the radar, you're old, you're out of your prime, you're done. So we're going to flip you for, future picks. Probably won't get anywhere similar to what the Nets gave us. But, that's what I'm hoping for. And I think the best part about Jaylen Brown winning MVP is the fact that it gives Tatum something to shoot for. Is that Tatum's got the Eastern Conference Final MVP for 22. And now Brown's got the Eastern Conference and Finals MVP from this series. So I'm hoping that, yes, they won. Yes, Tatum gets to sit there and put everything to bed about him and not being able to perform. I think it gives him something to shoot for. Dylan, what do you think about that?
So I mean, I think that Brown and Tatum, I think they're a match made for each other because I mean, you're definitely on the money where Tatum is the media darling. Again, he's a single father. He just loves playing basketball. He has no controversy whatsoever. And I mean, Jaylen Brown has a bit of more of an edge to him. I mean, he's been cursing a lot during media interviews and stuff like that, even after winning the championship. Like, he just has a don't care attitude. I don't think he really cares about what anyone thinks about him. I think he just cares about what his values are. And I think as long as Tatum and Brown push each other and they're always consummate professionals trying to be better, I think they could work for as long as possible. Now, I mean, I think complacency, I think, is the biggest issue, which is something you kind of touched upon because we have seen with the Celtics where there'll be times where they'll be up by a lot. They start getting a little complacent. They lose their focus. They start taking dumb shots and trying to do too much and like just have crazy dumb turnovers. I think luckily they showed this year that even at their worst, they could still win games that typically they should lose in previous years. So I think at least short term, at least over the next couple of years, when they still have that hunger to win championships, that maybe they can make a dynasty happen. I don't know. We'll see. I would like to see how you said where it's just like a trade where like they're just past their primes, they're going downhill. Some other team wants them for ticket sales or jersey sales or whatever. But at least the Celtics get the meat of their prime. That's all you can really ask for. And I just think that especially the way that Tatum's game's progressing, he's becoming a pure all-around player. Like his playmaking is now all of a sudden just skyrocketed where he's just getting double-digit assists. That's huge. Jaylen Brown, again, his handling's been so much better. His shooting's better. And like, I mean, he's always been kind of a shooting guard, small forward type of guy to me. So I think he fits that position perfectly. I think it just comes down to as long as they push each other and they both have the same goals in mind, I think they'll be together for a long time.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's what I'm very much looking forward to is I think these two now, again, like I said, I have to refresh myself with the new CBA, the language, because obviously with the players and how it's written, like what are we going to be doing? How are we going to be able to handle all these guys? You know what I mean? Like being able to go out and sign them, and do we even have the money? Because again, I don't know if you know this, but the TD Garden is owned by the Jacobs family. So they're owned by the Bruins organization. They're not owned by the Celtics. So Wick probably pays a fair share to Jacobs. And listen, while Wick and Steve Pagliuca are very wealthy individuals, they're not Golden State Warrior wealthy. I don't even think they're Laker wealthy, and I don't even know what the Lakers are worth because talk about
Beast busts poverty right now.
talk about a terrible organization, right?
Yeah.
I mean, didn't Barry say, or no, it might not have been Barry. I know he's a Laker fan, but yeah, it's just I saw somebody say like, oh, Stephen A, I think it was, that the Lakers are the best organization in the NBA, still. And I'm like, they can't even find a head coach. And the head coach that they're currently looking at does a podcast with its star player, and everybody in, all the ex-coaches are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What are we doing here? So obviously
G Bus went out and got a PPP loan during the COVID, so I don't think they got any money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Genie Bus. Crazy. But so I'm sitting here this way. I'm sitting here with Grid contributor Dylan Lima talking Celtics basketball, Celtics championships, and I want to get into the whole Marcus Smart conversation because I have been an avid hater on Marcus Smart ever since he stepped foot in Celtic green. Now, that doesn't mean I did not appreciate his game, because I appreciated his game. I appreciated his defense and that tenacity that he brought, the fire that, he played like a kid that didn't deserve to be there. Like he knew that he wasn't as talented as the rest of the guys. He knew that he couldn't, put up MVP like numbers day in and day out, but he brought that hustle to him. And I respected him for it. I liked him for it, especially, the first few years in the league, going after loose balls the way he did. But his defense was not the same over the last couple of years. Even the year he won Defensive Player of the Year, I don't think he was the best defender out there. And I think the only reason why he won was because of his reputation. He was a big, because that's what everybody knew. Everybody knew him as the defender. He was the guy on defense, the hustle guy, he'll give the Celtics his blood, sweat, and tears. Like that's what I think a lot of Celtics fans saw him as. I think it's a lot of what the NBA saw him as. But it just, I'm sorry, that's not this league. That just isn't this league. And so over the last couple of years, especially over the last two, where he was wearing Celtic green, he got sat in game one of the NBA Finals and sat there going, I should have been playing in the final 5 minutes. Why did Ime shit me? Like, no, you shouldn't have, dude. You sucked. And you're Mr. Ball Hog. You're taking up all these terrible shots. Going back to game 6, the only reason why there was a game 7 is because Derek White had the smarts to understand that Smart's going to throw up a terrible shot. He's the only guy that's going to get open, but he's going to put up a terrible shot. He's obviously going to miss. Hopefully the ball will bounce right to me, and it did. It did. So I was so sick and tired of Marcus Smart, all his antics. He thought he was the leader of this team, and this is why it's kind of driving me nuts, because all throughout Twitter, especially after going up 3-0, I saw tweets like this. Did you win the NBA championship? Yes. What did it cost? Everything. Like, just the do it for Smart, do it for all the Celtic guys who came before.
Brad Wanamaker.
Like Jonas Jerebko. Like, what are we talking about? We're the friggin' Boston Celtics. Screw those guys. They're done. They're in the past. It is over. Why? Why must we resurrect the shit? And I know, I swear, I tend not to, but why must we resurrect the shit that was 2013 or 14 to 2020, 18, I think it was. Because those years with all the middlers, like, granted, they performed out of their shoes. They were good. They did better than I gave them credit for. But this love and admiration from Marcus Smart to the point where we're going into game 4 and game 5, and it's like, do it for him. No! Stop! He was a bum. Every time he threw up a 3, I was always screaming, no. And then, of course, he entered the top 10 of most threes made in a Celtic career. But it's because he took 1,000 and only made 100. Like, so, Dylan, I know you said you dropped to your knees and that you're a big smart guy, but, expand more, because I'm of the mindset of his ego was writing checks his talent could not cash. So please enlighten me why that tweet's a good tweet.
Well, I mean, look, it was a bit excessive. When I'm seeing like do it for Jared Sullinger, I'm like, all right, that's enough. Let's just wrap it up. It's over. But at the same time though, Marcus Smart was kind of like that first piece of what made the Celtics what they are. His scoring was awful. He had that veteran type of mentality that gave Jaylen Brown and Tatum that edge that kind of led them to where they are. Of course, there's a double-edged sword too, because there was many times where Tatum and Brown deferred to Marcus Smart, especially when the goings were tough, and and especially when they were still trying to figure things out. They need to lean on Marcus Smart because he was the leader of that team. And again, he did everything that no one else wanted to do. One of the biggest part of his games is the way that he could draw charges. Like, that was like one of those things. I remember like when he would get a charge, I'd just be like, let's go. Like, he just loved Boston too. Like, that's one of those things, like, we talked about Kyrie, how Boston's kind of a cult. You need to, similar to New York, similar to like other couple big market places where it's like you need to be bred and have a certain kind of personality to be able to withstand such high expectations, such high pressure. And Marcus Smart was one of those guys. He loved Boston. He was such a philanthropist. He was a great guy. I think it was more outside of his game, which is what everybody loved him for, or at least like what shows up on the box score for the most part. And even with that depoy, sure, he may have had better defensive years, but I just think that huge run that the Celtics had where they were like just hugging around 500, maybe less, and then they won so many games that made them the first seed. I just think that whole run was the reason why Marcus Smart got depoy. It should have been Robert Williams, but then he got injured. Robert Williams, that 2022 Robert Williams, man, I just wish he just stopped playing that year and didn't try to force through injury, because if he was able to have those knees that, like, he would be one of the best defensive bigs in the NBA right now if he just could stay healthy. He was special. I remember when he almost had a triple-double with blocks as one of the stats. Like, he was special. I just think that, like, that 2022 year was such a missed opportunity that I just think a lot of fans, including myself, was sad when he left. Because I think we wanted to hold on to the fact that we were so close with this team that maybe one year we can make it happen. We just got to just keep on just fine-tuning and just working on the little things, but evidently it wasn't the case.
Yeah, but that's where, again, like for me, I mentioned it several times. I, talked with Bryson during the live stream. I mentioned it, several times on this podcast from its inception, was that Marcus Smart was writing checks. His ego was writing checks his talent couldn't cash. And when I say that, that doesn't only apply to his play on the floor, meaning his awful offensive statistics, but also I think applies to the way, like, he was the leader of the team. And by, I would say, 2020, 2021, those reins should have been handed over to Jason Tatum and said, here you go, kid. This is your team now. But he wouldn't do that. And so when you get to 22 and you see him being benched by Ime Udoka at the end of game 1 in a tight ball game that the Celtics ended up winning, you see him pouting because he's like, I should be out there. I'm the leader of this team. This is my team. When no, it's not. And I think it carried over into 22. I think with him, his antics, his, and again, a lot of it's speculation, obviously, but it just made too much sense because you could see Jaylen and Jason really not being the ones who were leading the team. And when Marcus Smart was traded, I was elated. I didn't care that it's for Kristaps Porzingis, a guy with an awful injury history. I was elated because what I felt like it did was remove a piece of cancer, like, and I'm not trying to call him, cancerous or anything, but it's just that attitude that he was there the longest of this, tenure. So he should be the leader, when it's like, no, that's not how this works. How this works is you defer to the guy who is the best player on the team, hands down, bar none. That is the NBA. It has nothing to do about veteranship. I mean, look at Al Horford, right? Al Horford, a great example. We traded for Porzingis, and Al's like, you know what? I'm good. Yeah, what do you want me to do, coach? I'll do it. And that's what he should have done. Marcus Smart should have understood that his role as leader done. He carried the Celtics to where they needed to go, but by the year 2021, after the whole COVID thing and that season, he should have handed the reins to Jason Tatum and said, dude, this is your team now. I'm going to take a step back. You lead this team the way you want to lead it. And obviously he did. And that's why I was so pumped and excited. And I was looking at all the Celtic fan and the green teamers. And I think too that, out of all the Boston sports fans, I think the Celtics are the most delusional fan base. And again, I'm a Celtic fan. I am. But I'm also very critical of my team. Now, I was questioning the Drew Holiday move. I was questioning the Kristaps Porzingis move. But I looked at it as, let's see what happens. I think this team is very deep. I think this team is really good. I like our core. I like Brown. I like Tatum. They were right there the last 2 years, Eastern Conference Finals, NBA Finals. And I think with these guys, if can stay healthy, I think can be great pieces. And they turned out to exceed my expectations outside of Porzingis, but that didn't bother me at all. So
Yeah.
that's why I was, and again, I'm not trying to get you on my side or anything like that. I'm just saying that Marcus Smart just drove me up a freaking wall.
And it's totally fair. It's totally fair because no, you're definitely right. Where like because he was the vet, he was the longest term guy. He felt like he needed to be that guy, and yeah, and like especially with how they played, and especially seeing how Tatum and Brown totally changed their game this upcoming year when Smart was gone. Now that the reins were officially finally handed over to both of them, and now they have to be the leaders. They got to be the ones that command the locker room, that get everybody else going and stuff like that. Because it was almost like they had training wheels on with Marcus Smart, because like Marcus Smart was doing a lot of the rah rah rah, and also just like when things were going bad, Marcus Smart had to be the guy to get everybody going and all pumped and stuff like that. And even though he showed leadership and he showed the tenacity, he showed everything. Like, at the end of the day, he was never going to be the best guy on the Celtics. It was very obvious. And it was frustrating when Smart felt like he had to shoot threes for no reason early in the shot clock when, you could just move the ball around a little bit. So like, it was time. Like once the season came about and how the Celtics played, it just made sense. Like, all right, yeah, Marcus Smart really was a big reason why they were held back for a while. So like, yeah, it's just more of an emotional thing. It's just more of like that we were so close. We got to keep the band together. But like, when your drummer stops drumming, you got to get rid of him. You got to find a better drummer. And they got Drew Holiday. So
they got Drew Holiday. Exactly. And so, and I'm sitting here with grid contributor Dylan Lima. My final question is, this team was just so dominant all year long that I looked at Denver as being the matchup this season in the NBA Finals that would have gone 6, if not the full 7 games. So with that being said, Dylan, does this opportunity, the fact that the Celtics and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown finally get to call themselves champions, does this open up a opportunity for them to start the next great Celtic dynasty? Because does it allow them to start the next great Celtic dynasty?
For sure. I mean, it was never a talent question, in my opinion. I think it was more of a mental thing. Like, I think losing that championship in 2022 was a real hurdle. And then obviously they almost came back against the Heat last year they forced 7. Unfortunately, they couldn't get it done. And then they finally got it done this year. People are going to always nitpick how their playoff run wasn't the most difficult. Whatever. I mean, there's always going to be injuries. The Celtics weren't 100% either, as Kristaps only played like 6 playoff games a whole playoff run anyways, and he still dominated. I don't see how anyone in the East right now can really fully compete because if we're just talking about starting 5, there's no other team in the East, in the West, that has a starting 5 as talented as the Celtics. And the fact they don't have to worry about contracts besides their bench at this moment. I just you're going to be hard pressed. I mean, I think the biggest problem would be because I was looking at salary caps earlier. I saw that 76ers have a lot of salary cap. I think they could be scary if they re-sign Maxey, if Paul George for whatever reason goes over the 76ers. I just think a trio like them, if they get a little extra help, I think they could be scary. I mean, Embiid, I think forever is a second round exit though, so I think that will always screw the Sixers overall. But if we're just talking talent, it's really just going to be who's in the West. And even then, I think Denver wildly underperformed. There's no reason why they should have been out as early as they were. And I think that could be the potential matchup going to the finals next year if all things stay similar. I think the Thunder could be scary, especially 1 year more mature, and they have plenty of young talent that once they hit their stride, they could be very dangerous and unstoppable. But looking at the East, it's like the Bucks could have been scary, but now they got Doc Rivers as their coach, and Doc Rivers can't coach anything. And Dame hated Milwaukee from the second he stepped in there, and I think he still hates Milwaukee. So him and Giannis, I don't think they could really coincide for much longer. It's just in the Knicks. Tom Thibodeau's got to go. I'm sorry, he's a funny looking coach. He's a dude that could really get his guys going. But we're past the point now where you can just have your guys go 82 games, 45 minutes a game. You got to give them rest. The reason why the Knicks lost to the Pacers because they ran out of gas. It wasn't because of talent. It wasn't because of coaching. It was because they quite simply ran out of gas. All the best players were injured. They could hardly even run and move around anymore come game 7. And I mean, they could be dangerous. They got to get rid of Thibs though. I don't know who they're going to play. Maybe if JJ Redick and LeBron James team up in the New York Knicks, that'd be crazy. That'd be very funny. But I mean, again, I think it's just the East is for the Celtics to take again, and it's just going to be who's going to be in the West at this point, at least for next year, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I think that this Celtic team, as it's I can't even think of the word, as it's constructed, I don't see how anybody could beat them. Yeah, sure, it was an easier postseason because here I'm sitting just kind of. I don't think I watched more than 5 minutes of the first 2 rounds. Because I knew that doesn't, it was just boring to me, because had the Heat had Jimmy Butler, yeah, I probably would have paid. I still think the Celtics should have won in 5, but I definitely would have been paying attention more. I definitely would have been intrigued to see how they could overcome that tenacity that Butler brings. But when it comes to Philly, yeah, Joel Embiid is a bum. I can't, the fact that he went on the NBA Finals and was talking about how, and again, the fact that they even asked, is this Celtics team a dynasty? Can we just, they hadn't even won yet. It was game 4. It was the start of game 4. They were up 3-0. That does not give them the title. Last I checked, you had to have 4 wins. So the fact they called it a dynasty, and then of course Embiid, being like, no, this ain't it. They have to come through us. Or, it's like, dude, no. You can have all your regular season stats. You can be the great regular season player that will never win. That will never get to the championship and win. Like, it's so dumb when I listen to some of these guys. And you're right. Like, when you break it down, I think the only team that really stands a chance at competing in the East are the Knicks, even as they're currently constructed. So, and the funny part was I thought Indiana was going to give us a better series than they did. And technically, you could say they did give us a good series. It was just we won every game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think from a whole, I think, I look at the Celtics team and I go, as it's currently situated, if everybody is healthy, there is no doubt in my mind that this Celtic team can't win a couple of championships and be the dynasty of the 2020s. And I think that's really what Boston has been waiting on. Boston has been waiting for somebody to break through, especially between the Celtics and the Bruins, because the TD Garden, I don't know if you've ever been there, but they used to have these wider yellow seats. And because it was the Bruins, most 90% of the seats were all yellow. And so when they changed it over about like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even slightly longer than that, they brought in these new black seats that are thinner so they could fit more seats. And so a lot of people were like, oh, we got the curse of the Garden now, because they got rid of the seats. And trust me, I didn't disagree. I'm not a big, curses guy, but outside of the curse of the Bambino, obviously, but just the little things like that. And so the fact that Boston was able to win, they closed it out. They closed out every game the way they should have on home court, except for Indiana, but that doesn't matter. Like, they closed the teams out. They didn't play with their food. That, I think, was good to see. And I think that, Tatum and Brown, again, everything is obviously predicated on them being healthy. I think can really, really do damage. And the Celtics can add another chapter to their storied history, which I'm very, very excited for. It should be a fun time and interesting to see what happens. So,
For sure.
Dylan, any last words, man? I appreciate you being on the show, but any final thoughts about the Celtics?
Thanks for having me, first off. And second off, I think Tatum and Brown officially arrived. They're officially in their NBA prime. Like, they're in their late 20s. They won their first championship. They won their first championship before players like Shaq, like Jordan, like LeBron won their championships. So they are officially here. You can't talk about them choking. You can't talk about, like they are the stars that the Celtics fans have been banging on the table about them being for years now. And they have officially arrived. As long as they stay healthy, we're looking at a potential dynasty here, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. And fellow great contributor, Dylan, appreciate you being on the show. Always great talking Celtic basketball. And hey, Banner 18, we're living it up, baby. That's what we're doing.
Very sweet. Such a sweet victory.
Yes, sir. Well, Dylan, appreciate you being on the show. And it was quite a night on Monday. The one other thing I do want to talk about is just Boston is Titletown. I mean, when you look at this, you have 6 Patriot titles, 4 Red Sox titles. Now you add 2 Celtic titles to 1 Bruin title. And that's something that I don't care who wins, which city wins. It's not the same. No other city, I think, can compete to Boston in terms of Titletown. And that's what I think is really the best part about being a Boston sports fan. I know my parents, my grandparents lived through decades of heartache and turmoil with occasional glimpses being the Celtics and a little bit of the Bruins in the early 70s. And so it's so cool to see. I mean, when I look at this stat right here, every championship on the left-hand side, I witnessed before I was even 20 years old. I saw 3 Patriot titles, 2 Red Sox titles, Celtic and Bruin title before I even hit 20. So you want to talk about spoiled? That's me. But no, it's just so cool to grow up with all these championships. And yeah, sometimes some of the comments that I make, you could sit there and say that, Tim, you are spoiled. You don't, understand turmoil. And it's not that I'm looking for championships every single year like John Henry thinks I am, or, thinks that we're all looking for championships. No, I just want to compete. I want you to show me, let's go win. That is why, as of Monday, Wick Grossbeck is the best owner in Boston. That dude gets it. He gets it. And it showed right behind me. You got the towel, the pennant, the T-shirt. The Celtics are back, baby. The Celtics are back. And I think they're here to stay. Now, as frequent comment to Sports Mom, we closed the dynasty chapter with the Patriots and now hopefully starting a Celtic dynasty. True. I agree with that. Ever since Brady left, there has been really nothing positive outside of Mac Jones' rookie year. And then, of course, Belichick got, too much of himself and let McDaniels walk, and then, had Matt Patricia and Joe Judge come in. And so now with Tatum and Brown finally solidifying themselves as champions, as knowing what it takes, as being able to get there and play the way they did, play team ball, there is no doubt in my mind that this team can't win multiple championships. Just like I thought that 08 Celtic iteration, from Garnett, Pierce, and Allen, they 100% could have won multiple championships and should have won multiple championships. Unfortunately, the injury bug caught up with them, but they were also in their early 30s when they joined forces. So for now, we got a 27-year-old Brown, a 26-year-old Tatum. There is really no doubt in my mind that this team can't win it all again. So thank you so much for joining the Boston Sports Summit on this championship edition, the first championship of the Boston Sports Summit. I can't wait to celebrate more because this is Titletown. Boston is the city of champions. No two ways about it. So appreciate you joining in. Thank you to frequent Grid contributor Dylan Lima for joining the show, talking Celtic basketball. It's been a great time. And for the Boston Sports Summit presented by the Grid Network, I am your host, Tim Barnett, where this show is your podcast for all things Boston sports. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys next week.